Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. We're glad you're here. Subscribe to this channel and give this video a like. We appreciate it.
Podcast below in the description. Subscribe to that as well.
We're sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka.
#1 vodka in America.
Crafted to be savored responsibly. Lee in the stream says 9-minute drives cover up for Jimmy and the DBs. Not really sustainable.
Agreed.
It's their primary issue. It's not new news. It's not new news today. I mean, it is a roller coaster ride with Jimmy Garoppolo. And sometimes he makes plays, and sometimes he throws picks. The two picks, just rolling through my memory here. He's had bad interceptions before, but these were, in terms of combining two of his worst, these were two of his worst in the same game. These weren't deflected passes. This wasn't a little too high off somebody's fingertips. They were both. The first one was baffling. I still don't know what happened on that first interception to Bobby Wagner, but they were bad. And then he also made some good throws, and he also missed some throws.
The run where he hit him right in the breadbasket,
like right on. It's like he let him. It was like Joe Montana.
He never hits an offensive player like that ever.
Bill Walsh was like, perfect, catchable ball. That's exactly how we draw it up, just like the teach tapes with Joe Montana. It was. This is what it is. It's what it is. And
he's thrown the linebacker pick several times in his career.
It was the Fred Warner practice pick, is what it was.
Luke Kuechly early on in his career.
That's the pick. Fred Warner had that pick like 9 times in camp.
I swear to God, Bobby Wagner's had that before, Tim. I mean, he's Eric Hendricks had one that was a little higher. The second pick to me is Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Like a deep breaking in route, in coverage that he absolutely airmails. Because maybe in his mind, I'm just going to put myself in Jimmy's mind. George covered. But if I put it up there, give him the opportunity to make a play, and then he throws it where George Kittle, who is one of the best athletes in the league, has, like, I don't think Kevin Garnett in his prime could get a finger on it. And then the DB that is 15 yards behind the 3 guys, I love it when he catches it, but like on his knees just to make sure, like, it's so easy. It's one of those ones in the outfield where Barry Bonds used to like no look it, but like any like outfielder that's very fundamentally sound, like Tommy Amansky style, catches it with the 2 hands. That's what the DB does. And listen, we'd have to go down and break back the safety. I don't know if the safety's on Kyle, Jimmy, or the offensive line, maybe a combination of the 3, because I would imagine the coaching point is, Jimmy, under no circumstances can you hold this ball very long. You have to get rid of this fucking thing fast. But I'll give him, maybe not a pass, but there's probably more than one responsible party on that bad boy, because he got attacked pretty quick.
Yeah.
I think the offensive lineman just didn't touch anybody, and it's
nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go.
You can't throw a pick. You can't ground it. You're in the end zone. But somebody said something we've talked about before. I'm going back to the comments. I can't find it. Jimmy can't throw outside that. Won't throw outside the hash pass 10 yards. Matt, normally I'd agree. The throw to Ayuk on the last drive of the game was one of the greatest throws Jimmy's ever made, ever. But it stood out to both of us. We were watching it together, because he never, ever makes that throw. And it's just a classic big league NFL throw, right? And it never happens. And it stood out like a sore thumb because it never happens.
It's a pretty basic NFL throw, wouldn't you say? The deep out, between that, whatever that, it's like cover 2, the corner's lower, the safety's higher, and you just have to put it in the spot.
Yeah, receiver just tap on his way out of bounds with it.
I mean, it's something you see with like Brady and Manning and those type guys. Like Rodgers, they just run that. You know why? Because that spot's open a lot of the time. Kyle probably doesn't even call it. So this gets back to defending Kyle. When your quarterback is just not a very good player, right? Relative to good NFL quarterbacks. When he's good, he's like average. And when he's bad, he's atrocious. And those picks today are like, that's bottom 5 level NFL quarterbacking, right? The 2 picks.
Awful. Yeah.
It just doesn't get any worse. And I think
it's quarterbacking at its worst. That's exactly right.
You said someone on the chat mentioned something like, when you just can't run it all game long, you can't hide Jimmy.
Yeah.
And we had been talking about, right, like 20 attempts. I think the last couple games were like 20 and 24. And it's hard. It really is hard to keep it around that number every game, because you're not going to just be able to run for 170, 190 yards. And today is a good example.
You're talking about pass attempts, right?
I'm talking pass attempts.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not a mathematician here or an analytical guru, but I do agree when they use the word sample size. Well, the larger and larger Jimmy G sample size grows in an individual game of attempts, the more likely he's going to throw picks over the middle of the field.
You know, a great analogy you just made me think of is like the more days away from home I am, the more likely I am to just break down and have a hamburger and fries. Right? When I'm out of my house, let's just say I'm in a hotel for one day. We're like a 50-50 shot I'm eating a hamburger. I'm out of the shot, I'm like greasy, bad. 2 days, like, now it's 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. Like, Jimmy, you just can't have the hamburger dangling out there for too many days in a row for him. He's got to be in his own kitchen with some readily accessible frozen veggies or something. I don't know. It's just too much. It's just too much. Maybe a better analogy would be ice cream in the freezer. I don't know, but I'm with you. It does feel like there's a big difference between 22 attempts and 30 attempts, right?
Well, it's especially when they're down. Because when they're down, you do have to push the envelope a little bit. He becomes a different guy when they're down. He has to push the envelope. You do not trust him. Because there couldn't be a soul watching that game today that didn't want Seattle to win. That when the ball leaves the frame, so when it's flying far enough where the camera has to move, you're like, you are shell-shocked. When it's just like, oh, Ayuk catches it and moves, right? And it runs another 5 yards, like, oh my God, he just hit it. You are expecting defensive backs.
This right here. This is the scariest image that you can see.
By far the scariest.
For those of you not watching this, there's a football in the air, and it's not clear where it's going yet.
Nope. And it's going past the first down
line. Russ
line,
does it, it's like, oh, fuck, DK's going to be open by 10 yards. Right?
Guy, when Russ does it, I think every time touchdown. Do you ever think it's going to be a touchdown, especially if the ball travels?
It's like, oh, this is going to be an underthrow, or this is going to be an overthrow. You never think that with Russ.
Jimmy's just...
And I think it's why they can't run the ball, right? Like, shocker. Seattle's not terrified of their ability to throw. A lot of the Kittle stuff happens around the line of scrimmage anyway, or in the flats. It's not like nobody is catching the ball 30 yards down the field. Now, Kittle goes off. He has an incredible game. Like you said earlier, 181 yards. How many of those plays happen 20 yards down the middle of the field?
No, he's breaking 17 tackles. I mean, he's just, I don't know, man. He just, at this point in time, like, Jimmy is what he is. They are going to ride with him at the quarterback. That is also a reflection of Shanahan, of the operation. Like, they did draft a quarterback number 3 overall. So it's like they clearly aren't developing him. They've given up on that. So they're all in with this guy who is, I no longer am going to be shocked when he throws these picks. Even though today it was a little
Are you,
shocking.
though? Oh, there was?
Yeah, I mean, just because he had, I guess he kind of had. He had the one pick last week, but they've just been able to avoid it. They've been able to circumvent Jimmy Garoppolo, and today they just weren't.
Yeah,
and I just think as these games get tougher, like, you're just not able to circumvent your quarterback against good teams.
Right now, go to liquidiv.com. Use the promo code HAM for 25% off everything. Get your hydration on.
Also, for our small business owners, are you guys hiring right now? I know a lot of people are. Indeed.com/ham. $75 off your first job post. You might be able to do it when you play Atlanta. You might be able to do it when you play, I think they still play Houston. But you are not able to do it next week, probably against Cincinnati, more than likely. You're not able to do it maybe the next... Like, you're not going to just be able to do it every single Rams game. I know they kind of have for like 5 Rams games. It feels eventually like, what happens when you're down 21-14 in the third quarter?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
this has to end. At least this is finite, right? This is going to end.
Well, I mean, John, shy of them making a Super Bowl run. Don't you remember?
Yeah. You ain't making a Super Bowl run with the old Jimmy G.
Let's be very clear. The only question with Jimmy Garoppolo left is, does he get cut or traded? But the question is not, can they get a second-round pick for him? Because everybody else has watched all the same stuff that all of us amateur GMs have watched, and none of us would trade a second-round pick. Not a single fan. It's like we always say, you can always tell how good a closer is based on how that team's fan base reacts when the closer comes in. When the gate opens and the guy comes in, it's like, oh, he's 38 of 42 save chances. But the fans are like, oh, God, oh, God. If your team traded a second-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo and you've been paying half attention, you'd know that was insane. The idea of them getting some value, that is so – I could not be less interested in that conversation. Let me know when the season ends, okay, after Wild Card Weekend, and then we can talk about it. Kidding, kind of. I don't know. Then we can talk about it. But until then, there's no reevaluation. I've said it many times. This is what it is. Sometimes the ball gets caught. Sometimes it gets deflected. Some games there's a DB there, and some games there isn't. But that ball, that second pick, gets thrown every game, whether he throws a pick or not. It's there to be had. It's just, is someone going to grab it or not? It's the same. Every game, it's the same. The only question is, does he play quarterback throwing the football with a complementary run game or not? Today he didn't, and so there you go. They couldn't put together. Actually, how many plays was that last drive? Like 9 or 10?
Play-by-play, it was 12.
Yeah, well, good for them. I thought that was actually a pretty impressive drive. It was. They hit some big throws, the Ayuk throw, the Kittle, but it's just
he can have drives and look like a top 15 quarterback when the game, but the totality of the game. Because I was going to say, when you were just talking very eloquently about Jimmy, that just until you get to his last two numbers, 20 of 30 for 300 yards, 10 yards an attempt, and 2 touchdowns. If I just stop right there, you'd be like, pretty good NFL game on the road, Seattle. Then it goes 2 picks, both of them. Not all picks are equal, right? Russ threw a pick today. That interception was not on Russell. Do we agree there? Like Russell's 1 pick and Jimmy's comparing his pick to Jimmy's. And then his 1 sack was a safety. So he throws 2 picks and he gets a safety. It's just a disaster.
The crazy
Jimmy's problem, guy, is like, because people are like, remember when you used to say Jimmy was better than Derek? Because 2 years ago he was playing better than Derek. Now the one thing to like watching Derek play today, Jimmy makes these disastrous plays. And they talking about it a lot with like, I think coaches, I think Mario's a good example. If you really got like, ask Mario and you ask Joe Moorhead, who both might be on the go. I guess Moorhead's gone.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you play the rookie over this quarterback? We just don't trust him. We don't trust him. You talk to NFL quarterbacks or NFL coaches and play callers, why they don't play like the younger guy over the veteran player like a Jimmy. We just don't trust him. We don't trust him. Well, it's like Jimmy is 30 years old and he's playing like everything those guys think about their 19-year-old freshman quarterback or 22-year-old rookie quarterback. He does Zach Wilson level disastrous shit, but he still does a lot of the good stuff that they can't maybe do over like a lot of times. But his disastrous pitch, he's always going to like hang the slider against the number 4 hitter who's an all-star and voted 3rd in the MVP the last 5 years. And that guy's going to hit it out of the park every single time.
Yeah, or swing and miss. Sometimes he swings and misses, right? Some of those games, sometimes the guy swings and misses. It's like, oh my God, he's batting him. He's hitting himself in the head on the way back to the dugout because he just missed a pitch.
He's trying to throw you the ball, though. He's trying.
Yeah, it's like it's very much like what I said about Kirk before the Niner game. It's like Kirk is not a guy that goes through a season with 2 picks. He's just not. So are you going to catch it or not? Because it's going to be there. It's going to be there.
The difference is, I was going to say, I guess Jimmy doesn't move around anymore. So I was going to say, because Cousins is a bad athlete, again, relative to NFL quarterbacks. Like, if Lamar's a 10, Cousins like a 3. I used to think Jimmy was like a 6, 6.5. He plays now much more like a true pocket quarterback. Like, he ain't moving at all. Beside the occasional like boot, but he ain't running away from anybody. So he doesn't. One thing that I thought he did 2 years ago when he had his good season, he was a much better ad-lib quarterback than he is now. He doesn't bring much play. Like one knock that like scouts will tell you about Cousins, and this is why his stats like throughout a given year can look pretty good. But if you really watched it in totality, like if you ask any Vikings fan, obviously they lost the Lions today, but they would just be like, he's so underwhelming for a guy that's like stats are actually look pretty good. Because part of that is like when the play breaks down, and this is why I feel pretty good betting on Josh Allen over Mac Jones in this game on Monday Night Football. Can you do something out of the realm of the play call, right? Sometimes, and this is why I think ultimately they went and we pounded the table for Fields or Trey Lance, because you need a guy. That's what's kind of killing it in the league right now. And you even saw Minshew a couple times today, like made some plays just outside of the pocket, like not even outside of the pocket, but just outside of 1, 2, 3. Then you kind of got to do a 360 and move. Jimmy doesn't bring any of the ad-lib shit anymore. And then his just in the pocket stuff is just like Cousins. I guess Cousins in the pocket untouched is less likely to do some of the Jimmy stuff Cousins is when he does have to move, then he's completely fucked. Jimmy's just like in the pocket, like just pretty normal pocket. You know, lets it rip. He's hit the defender in stride? How did he do that? He can't hit offensive players in stride. So it's like the play that Ayuk, the ball that got overturned, right? That they called it. You know, that's a really hard play. That shouldn't be that hard. How many Ayuk plays now I get he ain't Calvin Johnson, right? He's 5'11-ish.
Same on like the use check play, right? The use check play was a wide open. They nailed the play call. The play worked. They executed it. You know, Juice is not an elevation sensation. He made some other great plays in the game.
But he's 6'2". Like, you don't have to.
I know that one. But it's somebody made the point to your baseball analogy. It's like he just throws the fastball down the middle against a power hitter. Sometimes the guy swings and misses. Sometimes he hits it out. And we know what we're getting at this point. And to
me, what's crazy though, guys, like the use check one, where you know you're a little high. Why don't you do, like the Derek? When Derek's a little off, he'll throw the lobber. So even the guy has to stop, and it'll be like, instead of getting like a 30 yards, you may only end up with 18. But the fucking chains move. Jimmy just has one speed. It's like, Jimmy, just make him catch it at his knees. Even if Juszczyk falls, 16 yards, completion, first down. Instead, Juszczyk, they're like, hey, bro, jump like Gary Payton II. And think how hard it is as a fullback. You're full stride, 18 yards down the field. You're turning. The ball's way high. You know, we love the guy. It's a hard play for him.
It is. How about the catch he did have, though, late? Juszczyk behind him, like spinning away from a big hit.
But that's what I'm saying. Hit. If you throw it below Kyle's waist, he'll make the play. I don't think he's used to jumping. But that's asking him a lot. They're asking Ayuk to do a lot.
No, I know. I guess my point is, like, there's a lot at play when you draw that play up. You realize it kind of maybe has to be more perfect than if you're throwing that ball to. But again, they don't have Justin Jefferson, right?
No,
they don't have. But whatever. That's not the problem. The reality is, you could put Justin Jefferson on this team, and we'd be having the same conversations. That's the reality. That's my point. It's like we start talking about trade value. It's like this is what it is, and so hey fellas, here's what we can't do today. We can't give up a special team score. We can't give up a special teams turnover. We can't commit 10 penalties. That's just not our recipe. It's just not our recipe. It's just not. They don't have a big margin for error because they have a hard time making up for mistakes. Because their thing is, let's run the ball, which is great. I'm all for it. You're all for it, like you said.
Yeah.
But the more you throw, the more likely something bad is going to happen.
Well, it's like Michigan will not win the championship if they can't run the ball. That's a fact, right? The only way they're going to be able to win 2 games in the playoffs is they're going to have to run it against Georgia, which is going to be very difficult. Alabama didn't. They threw it. And then they're going to have to run it against Alabama. And obviously that's the highest level. And they're a much better relative to their opponents. It's hard for the Niners because it's clear. Like, Seattle's played them so much, but like, what do you have to do? What's the Niners' go-to plays to start a game? They're going to run toss left and toss right, and they're going to toss it more to the corners. They're going to try to run the edges with their tackles, their fullback, and their tight end. That's their favorite fucking play. And when that thing starts getting working, you're in trouble because then he can work the boots and the stuff. But if you can stop that, you just get 2nd and 9, 3rd and 10. You just have to run. Like Kyle can only, and this is where I will defend him, you can only run so many like leak out plays to Kittle and Juszczyk. Like you can't do that 25 times a game. You can do that 5 or 6, and luckily they hit them all of the day. But eventually you just have to run some basic pass routes to your wide receivers, and it's hard to trust Jimmy because you don't trust him outside the hashes, and inside the hashes you're holding on for your ass because here's what we can't be shocked anymore, right? We have a large body of evidence. I guess he missed 1 game, so 10 and a half games. He missed a half too. So there's played 12 games. He's played 10 and a half of them. His high balls are a thing. They are not only not going away, it's really part of his repertoire. So, and I think this is what you've been saying about Kyle. He almost like calls plays to avoid those, but it's hard. You can't just be like, well, we'll never throw over the middle of the field on 2nd and 3rd and long. Like you do kind of need to do that. Besides this, the occasional like dump down to the running back.
Right.
Jimmy makes it very, very difficult on the offensive play caller. Like Kyle can do poor things, like have a bad individual call, let Hightower be a disaster, but also like it's easy to get mad at him for things that like, no, that's like fucking Bill Walsh could be calling these plays. He'd want to wring Jimmy's neck.
Yeah, and that's where we can have a legitimate conversation that we've had before. We don't need to rehash now about, evaluating Tom Brady and the, draft several years ago and whatever. But that stuff's over and done with. It's now about this year, A, B, Trey Lance in the future, period.
But I also think like it's a fair argument or a fair criticism or a fair just question for just if you're just a diehard Niner fan on the couch, you and me sitting there like I understand, Kyle, you said all these things about Trey, but you just see him at practice and be like, scout team or only. It's just me and you over here, Jimmy. Just me and you, Jimmy. The Titanic, which is our team, we're either going to make it to land or we're going to sink. Just me and you. I'm calling the plays, you're throwing it. Is that just... That's where I understand people calling him like Chip Shanahan, very stubborn, because that's clearly the mode he's in, which to me seems a little crazy after like a game like this. How do you just think like that after watching that? It's like, Kyle, I can't be shocked next week when he throws it to some Bengal defender when you're tied 14-14 and Josh Norman's getting smoked by Jamar Chase, and you like it feels like, God, this is going to be a tight game. Jimmy airmails it, dude picks him off, goes 30 the other way, and Kyle's screaming at him on the road in Cincy. Like, get ready for it. That's where I do think the criticism of like you're either coaching or allowing it to happen. Like they're all in. And it's previous years they have had no other options. They did just draft a guy 3rd overall. Are you not trying it all? Seems kind of crazy. There's just a lot of like not everyone's on the same page. They're not built for adversity right now.